一个美国人去了中国回来，说出了一句话，差点让整个西方世界石化。他说，中国不只是资本主义，简直是超级资本主义，正在用美国自己的规则打败美国这几个美国博主。带着满脑子的西方叙事，亲自飞到上海走了一圈。他们不是什么清华人士，也没有任何立场要替中国说话。他们来之前脑子里装的是什么？社会信用体系、威权管控。人民生活在恐惧之中，那整套故事是这帮西方媒体为了他们几十年的东西，话音未落，踏上这片土地的那一刻，眼前的一切让他们说不出话。前进的街道，跑不完的滨江步道，满街的电动车，还有让洛杉矶汗颜的城市基建。没想到其中一个人说出了一句让所有人窒息的话，他宁可让共产党来管理洛杉矶，因为他觉得那样会更好。他们到底看到了什么，才让这几个美国人讲出了这样的话？让我们来看。
I will say, here's a debate I want to have. Nothing that I've seen on this trip has dissuaded me from my opinion that China is a not only capitalist country, but almost a hyper-capitalist country that is kind of just beating America at its own game. And I want to know if you have things that disagree with that. I'm reading a literal book called Capitalism right now. People are working jobs for private companies, getting paid in money that they're using to buy their own things. There is literally nothing about it other than the government takes taxes and spends on
You are a sitcom character. You are a sitcom character. You buy your basketball, you dribble it in the middle of the train station, you lose your passport, you're reading a book that I think is the 2x the size of what
the Bible
that is literally says capitalism in giant letters on the front of it and brought it to China, whether it be intentional or not.
No, it's not intentional.
Yeah.
But I just, that is what I'm seeing is that like the privately owned tech companies are out competing. The tax dollars are spent on just better things. Like they're just being smarter with their tax dollars. Like I don't think it's like a fundamental economic system difference. I think it is literally an intelligence of how you are allocating your tax dollars difference. That is
the infrastructure that like we talked about, it's not like the craziest thing ever, but it works and it's well done. I think there's a lot of focus on city services. Well, you guys went and had a different conversation. I just like ran for a long time down the Shanghai River. As I went farther and farther down, it became less developed and whatnot. But there's still like all these public service workers cleaning random walkways, clearing this area of bamboo. Like it's just this endless, just wide system-wide, organization of people at this mass scale. And there's that, and then there's insane capitalism on top of it at a level that is like way beyond ours. Not beyond ours, but like is wild a lot of the time.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's necessarily changed my opinion or understanding. I think going into this, from everything we've read and talked about China before, it's like the state is very heavy-handed in picking like the winners and losers of overall industries. Like we're going to allocate assets to benefit public infrastructure or to benefit specific types of companies so that things flow in a certain direction. But if you're a part, it's like the free market or the capitalism part of it is it within the industries that they want to see like proliferate and succeed. And I feel like that's what I'm witnessing.
Yeah, I said they're not picking winners and losers. They are picking.
I think they're not picking winners and
industries.
they're not picking winners and losers within the industries. They're doing everything they can to emphasize successful companies within these spaces and industries, and then compete with each other.
For example, I think the perfect example is the EVs thing, where it's like they're creating laws that emphasize EVs, the license plates, that creates a market for it. And they're saying whoever figures that out can get rich. And then there's just brutal competition for people to try and get the market share in the EVs area because they've created this massive.
Yeah, my like week in China synopsis of it is like,
I'll tell you, no weed in China.
That was not what I was going to bring up.
That's where Aiden was.
I wasn't going to bring up no weed.
Desperate for weed since we got here.
What have I been smoking?
You've been eating betel nut.
Too much of a coward. Look, I'll answer the question you're really asking. I would let the CCP run Los Angeles. I think it'd be better.
You specifically said you would let Trump end his term now and give it to Xi Jinping for 3 years at the same time as he's running China. You'd say you'd do it as a side job.
Yeah, I would.
That I didn't disagree with.
What's an extra 300 million people?
Yeah. At that point, it's a rounding error.
It's a rounding error, bro.
The U.S. is a suburb.
We could move them into Shanghai. Have you seen how many buildings there are? There's a lot of buildings, man. We don't have enough in Los Angeles. That way, we keep the character of Los Angeles.
I think what in the country, the government wields the power to make sure that corporate interests can't overwhelm anything, which it's like, if anything falls out of line in terms of competition, they have the power to be like, this
Like, there's a bunch of billionaires in China.
Yeah,
China
there's
has
a
plenty of billionaires.
The second most billionaires in the world.
There's a gigantic wealth gap in China. But anybody who like falls out of line or isn't acting in the country's like best interest, they can kind of come in and hammer that thing down and change it. And I feel like in the US, it's not the same. In the US, corporate money is so tied into politics that the government's ability to effectively influence business in a direction for the country's best interests is not there in the same way. And I'm not saying that doesn't come with like trade-offs here or something, but I think that is the difference, is like when you see billionaires in China held accountable by the government in a way that I don't think is really possible in the US. I think that's part of the reason that the competition exists in China in the way that it does.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't democracy here. And that is,
it's
that is the obvious, clear counterpoint to all this. You know, it's like, I think what I've been surprised by on a broad, high level is like, holy shit, this is really well done, and so many people's lives are clearly improved. And you can hear it in the way we talk to people and the pride they have for the country. They explicitly say how much better their life is, how convenient it is here. And it's like, in that context, yeah, of course, you're going to feel more receptive to that. And it's also weird to be like, if anybody here doesn't like that, they cannot voice that online. We spoke with not only our interpreter, but also the folks who worked at university, saying how podcasts here will talk about current events, but you don't talk about politicians by name. You just sort of like, like Mr. Jen, like you kind of allude to it, because if you ever start on the nose talking about the political side, then you just get removed. And it's less like dramatic.
Well, just to be clear, like, because I think that was a good thing to clear up.
Yeah, it's
the
not,
idea, you're not getting removed as in you're getting tossed in a prison or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's much less
you
dramatic.
can just get deleted. Your content will get deleted. If you have a post that is critical that gets viral, it's deleted.
Yeah.
I think this whole dynamic was really interesting. This was in our conversation with the director from the university, and he explained how he listens to a lot of podcasts, and there's free versions of podcasts and subscribe to versions of podcasts, much like we use Patreon for this show. In the subscribe versions, people have a comfort with speaking a little more freely about political issues that they don't in the public versions of the show. And it's not that that's not accessible or policeable, because at the end of the day, if you keep poking the bear in the subscribable version, it's still, you're still going to be held accountable somehow. But there is a freedom of speaking in those subscribe to podcasts, which
I mean, it's like us. We don't tell you what we really think about Trump till you get our Patreon. We've kept it low key, but when you get to the Patreon, we tell you what we really think.
I talk about how hot Pete Hegseth is on there, and I'm not scared.
It's a total 180.
It's a 180, bro.
But
It is a Tucker Carlson bias.
We just asked straight up. It was like, what's your thoughts or understanding of people being thrown in jail or facing consequences for speaking out against the government in China? Like, explain to us how that actually works. And because the government has such an influence or control over social media platforms, which he also added is not direct control. He basically said that the rules of the government are so broad that there's a lot of incentive for the platforms themselves to police themselves and be really specific in their terms of service and the way you can use these sites and the things you can talk about. And the companies do a lot of the legwork of enforcing more broad rules that the government has put in place. And then if you do overstep the line, like say I go fucking crazy across my social media platforms and I'm really critical of the government and they decide to pull the plug. The thing is, I lose my access and my influence across all of these platforms at once. So in the US, it's like if I get banned on YouTube, I might be able to communicate an update to my fans through my big Twitter or Instagram following. And people can get an update of like what site to jump to. I can carry on my influence somehow. But in China, once you use your influence on one of these sites, you've lost it on everything. And your ability to rebuild your following isn't really existent. It's like you just pay the price. You're not going to jail, but you've lost all of your influence.
Yeah, I would say the way you describe companies and the way I see it happen with local governments, it's really more that the high-level federal government is pretty broad on setting large macro goals and being kind of vague. They're not doing a lot of things you hear about happening in China. A lot of things that are done on the enforcement level or people choosing to self-censor are done either on the individual level, on the company level, or on the local government. Like all that stuff is them trying to adapt to these larger goals.
Yes, but like we read a book and the university person mentioned that more and more party representatives have to be in every company. Like that is increasing over the past like decade.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
There is more of a sense. I mean, for context, you literally have to, with a company of any size, have multiple like CCP members who are party members who are there to make sure the interests of the party are represented at your company. And they're at a high level in your company. That is way different than the government's like, oh, do whatever you want. Am I crazy? Like that feels like
I think you're
extreme
totally right.
heavy-handedness.
Yeah. I think you're totally right. I mean, it'd be similar to what's happening with Intel right now in America. But yeah, I'd say like,
Are we installing like party Trump party members? Is Barron working at Intel?
Geopolitical goals of America, which is to build certain things within the American border, which is why they're propping them up and forcing them to do like that.
I guess that's true. He mentioned how before it was like his office was kind of like separate, and it was again, not to cross the line, but don't go too far. But now it's like you're literally in like different administration groups are being like you're in the same building in the same room in the university now, and the CCP party member is there in the same room. There's just like more, and it goes up and down. He said depending on.
But even the party members,
tides.
I'm talking about, the party member is probably someone from the local government, right? Not
Okay. Here's an example I can think of that kind of supports what you're saying. It's actually the social credit system that gets talked about a lot.
We should clear this
so
up,
we've joked and talked about this on this trip a little bit, but basically the way that started is broad requests from the central government came in, and the social credit system, as it was floated around in the US, was an example of more local government trying to take these like broad stroke goals or rules from the central government and employing a policy in one specific place. Was it a specific city, right? And then trying this sort of like social credit-esque system out where like officials would like note good deeds or bad deeds and like try to build something out of that. But it didn't actually work, and it never expanded out of that one place. And that expanded into this news story of the social credit system as we know it in the US. From, admittedly stuff I've just like read and watched. This is an example of how the central government in China works, is they'll roll out some new goals or things that they want to change in broad terms, and then let local government officials approach tackling that problem as they wish.
Yeah, I'll give a specific because it goes back to the open cloth thing. So the big Chinese 5-year plan meeting just happened very recently. And one of the things they walked away from saying is that one of our big goals for the next 5 years is to be a world leader in AI. AI is a big goal of the Communist Party for China. And so all the local governments are given that goal and said, figure it out. Help your area of the country be a leader. And so a lot of local government money is going towards funding things that have to do with boosting AI productivity or whatever in the area, which is why many companies or areas are using this open cloth thing, because they can get local government funding to be a leader in that. That's how it trickles down from like broad idea to local government money to actual action. And so, they did that with EVs, and that is why EV factories popped up in all different parts of China, and there was huge competition because they said that's a goal. It's a broad goal. Local government figure it out. Local governments give subsidies to EVs or create the license plate law. And like the license plate law starts in a city and it works. And so everyone goes, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
so that's how
it was stressed to us that these local places that try something become testing grounds for laws that can be applied at scale across like the whole country. I think one of the downsides to that too is you often hear these stories of how much debt China has actually taken on. And it's also a result of this system, from my understanding, is like local government officials take on debt in order to build large infrastructure projects that the public still benefits from, right? But the debt is accumulating in China in a different way, where local officials are choosing to spend this money and the debt accumulates at a local level, which is like tracked differently. So the amount of debt that China has is actually much, much larger than the central government shares, because a lot of the debt is held by like specific areas of the country or like by these local positions or parties.
Yeah, they have local debt and we have national debt. I will say, at the end of the day, it does seem like they got more for their debt. Like they
Yeah.
And I there's arguments you can make, and I'm sure you've heard them about overcapacity, overbuilding. I will say that the having been around here a few days now, not really anything deep, but we talked to the guy whose dad worked in construction. The Evergrande thing there is a reality to that, in that construction on some buildings we've seen pass by has frozen and stopped, and there is so much capacity. So if the population is shrinking, there's just so much housing. So housing prices are shrinking, and because the stock market is not a place most Chinese have put their savings, people's retirement savings that are in housing is slowly going down because the price is going down. I think they're unwinding the bubble in a pretty smart way from what I've heard and seen, in that they had a real estate bubble, they knew they had to fix it, and they are slowly deflating it to where it's not causing chaos, but it is happening. There's clearly, and the people we talk to that aren't in the areas that are thriving, which are EVs, robotics, AI, the areas that are crushing, are saying there's fewer jobs. We're seeing that there's a job slowdown outside of the areas that are crushing.
Well, the one young kid, the delivery driver, he was from a different part of the country. He was from Hunan. And he said the reason he left is he literally cannot find work back home. And even if he could, he said that job would pay a lot less than like delivery driver in Shanghai.
He's like, yeah, me and my 5 friends just moved to Shanghai
Yeah.
to look for work. You know, it's interesting.
To be fair, the scale of the buildings and infrastructure is so massive, but I have yet to take binoculars and see if there's people living in these things. You know what I mean? It could all be like, let's be clear. What I can definitely confirm, having seen 0.5% of China, is that there's a fuckload of buildings.
Just a fuckload.
Like it's New York City times 100.
Whatever you're thinking.
It's not just it's a little bit. It's like bigger than anything you could possibly imagine. And then maybe there's people in it. It could be like this.
I think in Chengdu there's people
in the cities.
I don't know. What I'm saying is, have you proven it? Have you done real investigative journalism, or you just
We go unit by
reading
unit.
what you heard?
Let's go and knock on doors unit by unit with my basketball, and we're gonna ask him about Kobe Bryant.
I activate
The fact
my
that we're
Alex
in
Jones
here-
voice.
Okay,
Do people even live in these buildings?
We're saying in this for $100 a night. This is a 2-bedroom fucking apartment
This
in a
is
condo
yeah.
building. Okay, where like this is obscenely nice,
Dude,
and that points to nobody lives in this building. All right, let me just say.
No, it does point to.
No, I think it points to a lot of supply.
a crazy amount of supply.
No,
Yeah.
actually, dude, again, this very anecdotal, and I'm curious to see more of this, but it does feel like there's such a focus on building, and it seems excessive. At this like spa thing we went to yesterday, it was like one of the nicest spa things I've seen, and it just keeps going. It's like, oh, there's an outdoor area. The outdoor area has a movie area, and it has another bar, and it has karaoke, and it has soccer. Over here, here's the gaming.
Here's the PC cafe.
Here's the
in your spa.
here's the PC cafe. Here's the like fighting stick. Here's 5 different steam rooms. Here's the rock room. Here's it just keeps going
fucking
and
sick.
going. And then this buffet that we went to was like incredible. It was like, oh, if you're here, you get a buffet at 5 p.m. or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And there were not nearly enough people for all the food there. I don't know if you guys noticed
where
that.
I felt this was
when
the malls.
when we went downstairs and there's 3 people waiting by the door while we wait for our Uber. There's like 5 people down there. In America, that would be 1 person maybe.
Yeah.
And this whole complex had maybe 30 customers.
No, but in the malls, did you feel that? We were in some of the nicest, largest malls I've been in my life. Spotless malls, floor to ceiling, filled with all full stores. The traffic on a weekend was like
Yeah, this was a weekend yesterday.
tiny. It's just crazy.
看完刚才这几个美国人的对话，老实说，我心里的感觉很复杂，不是意外，而是一种久违的感觉，就像一个被误解了很多年的人，终于有外人开口说了一句公道话。这几个美国博主的震惊，其实有它的心理学根源。心理学上有一个词叫认知失调。当你亲眼看到的现实和你从小被灌输的印象完全对不上号的时候，大脑会产生一种强烈的撕裂感。他们从小被告知中国是压抑的、落后的人民，活在恐惧之中。结果来到上海看到的是让硒谷都要正视的科技竞争，是电动车遍地开花的产业生态。是一个城市从街道到服务，从效率到规划，都在悄悄地把美国比了下去。那种震惊不是赞美，是整套世界观被现实打脸后发出的声音。我们可以打个比方，想象有个邻居从小跟你说隔壁那家穷乱不可信，有一天你真的敲门进去，发现人家家里窗明几净，孩子前途无量，饭桌上的菜比你家丰盛3倍，你的第一反应是坦然承认吗？不。第一反应是怀疑，这是装出来的，背后一定有问题。这就是西方几十年来对中国叙事的底层逻辑，他们不是不知道真相，是输不起。视频里有一个细节让我印象特别深刻，他说中国搞电动车不是政府钦点哪一家公司赢，而是设定方向制造市场，让所有企业去拼命厮杀。中央说一个目标，地方政府各自想办法落地，一个城市试出来的政策行得通。全国就跟着复制推广，就这样，比亚迪一年卖出超过370万辆车，理想、小鹏、蔚来，每一个品牌都是从零杀出来的。反观美国，每一分基建拨款都要先过一遍游说集团的手。法案谈了几十年还在原地踏步，不是美国人不聪明，是那套系统根本转不动了。他们也聊到了一个我们在意的点，中国有钱人很多。贫富差距也是真实存在的，但有一条线没有人能越过，你的财富不能凌驾于国家利益之上。我们深知这不是完美的制度，但它代表一种选择，资本为国家服务，而不是国家为资本服务。 你见过几个中国首富能像某些美国科技巨头那样直接左右一场总统选举，在美国企业现金养活了政客，政客保护了企业，然后由纳税人来买单，那才叫真正意义上的系统性问题。他们还特意提到了社会信用体系，这个在西方媒体里被说的神乎其神的东西，其实只是某个地方政府做了一个小规模实验，最后根本没有推广开来，但这个故事被这帮西方媒体放大成了中国全民监控的铁证，传遍了全球。这就是所谓的资讯战，不需要谎言，只需要断章取义。只需要把一个地方的实验说成是整个国家的现实，我们早就看穿了，只是有些人还在那个谎言里没出来。历史上每一个崛起的文明都曾被当时的霸主贴上威胁的标签，当年英国看着美国工业化说的也是同样的话，今天这几个美国博主能够如实说出自己的所见所感，已经是一种罕见的诚实。更多的人还在那套陈旧的叙事里绕圈子，不是因为他们愚蠢，而是因为承认中国的成就对他们来说代价太大了，历史的车轮从来不等任何人。你们亲眼看到的那个中国只是一个开始。你们去过中国吗？你身边有没有类似的故事评论区？见